I feel like I need to introduce myself again. I'm Deacon Jim Doyle. It's been about probably 5 months or longer since I've been up here. Well, it's been since before the pandemic that I've stood here without a mask on and spoken to you. So again, I'm your deacon. And some of you have actually asked, where I've been. I actually, during the summer, some of you may have noticed I was not around much. That is because I retired from the FBI at the end of July, and I decided I needed time to decompress and to kind of relax a little bit. So Father Mike was very gracious, and what I did is I hit the road, and I went back to my home in the Midwest, and I visited my parents, and I took multiple trips, 2 or 3. I visited my parents a few times, and I visited a bunch of friends I hadn't talked to for probably years. I even went down to southern Indiana, where my family is, where my Irish ancestors immigrated back in the 1830s. During the pandemic, I did some genealogical research, and I wanted to see up close, what I actually discovered. So that was pretty cool. We went up to Wisconsin and visited, my daughters grew up in Wisconsin. That was the first place the FBI had sent me to work, and I was there for 11 years. We went up there and visited family and friends, reconnected with friends. So I'm so grateful for that time, and I'm so grateful that Father Mike was so accommodating. It gave me an opportunity to, after a really kind of stressful last 2 years, not to speak the pandemic, of course, but working at the White House and before that doing Russian counterintelligence at the FBI, it gave me a chance to recenter myself and to reflect on what's really important in life, what's really important to me. And that is my family. It's people. It's my family, it's friends, people that I hadn't even, talked to for years. I visited the FBI chaplain from Chicago. I went up to his place in Wisconsin and spent a whole day with him. It was amazing. But it gave me a chance to refocus and remember what was really important. Because it was easy during that time, those last few years, I think I kind of got it out of whack a little bit. So like Father Mike said, this is the last Sunday of the church year, Christ and the Feast of Christ the King. I think this is, we don't have 3 months like I did, but I think this is a good opportunity to pause at the end of the church year and to do a similar kind of reflection about our faith life. I think we can some of the same things that I discovered on my personal journey there, and that recentering. I think this is an opportunity for us as a faith community to do the same thing. And a great place to start to figure out what should be most important is the readings from today. So in the first reading from the book of Daniel, Daniel describes Jesus as one like the Son of Man who received dominion, glory, and kingship. All peoples, nations, and languages serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that shall not be taken away. His kingship shall not be destroyed. And then, as the choir so beautifully sang today in the psalm, the Lord is king, he is robed in majesty. And then finally, in the gospel today, which I just read from St. John, we hear Jesus in response to Pilate's interrogation tell Pilate, "My kingdom does not belong to this world. If my kingdom did belong to this world, my attendants would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not here." So Pilate said to him, "Then you are a king." And Jesus answered, "You say I am a king. But for this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." So in each of these readings, Jesus' kingship is affirmed. But in spite of all these scriptural references to Christ our King, and many others elsewhere in the Bible, I think that many of us may not truly understand what it means to say and truly mean that Christ is our King. I was raised in a strict Catholic household. We attended church every Sunday on holy days and sometimes even went to Mass daily during Lent. We attended Catholic schools and were very involved in our parish. We were very much a part of and believed strongly in the importance of the institutional church. As I grew up, I personally looked to the church for support and guidance. It was very important in my life. And although I did not realize it at the time, I also grew up a cultural Catholic, a term I've only recently come to understand. Besides being raised with a strong religious foundation, I had also lived in the Catholic way, attending Catholic grade school, helping at parish bingo on Wednesday nights, attending the church festival each year, going to Stations of the Cross, and going to the Friday fish fries during Lent. The church was at the center of my life, and I didn't think much about it. It's only as an adult that I realized that this cultural Catholic identity may have been more important to me at times than what really mattered and what faith should really be all about. Parish festivals, fish fries, bingo night is not what being Catholic is all about. The pandemic, more recently, has made this very clear to me. For many Catholics, there was no church at all for several weeks after we locked down, although St. Pius only missed one Sunday before going online. And when we did come back to church, it was virtual. We could only attend Mass and gather as a community online. So suddenly, all those cultural Catholic things were not even possible anymore, since we were not able to gather in person. This really made me reflect on what church had meant to me, and whether I had always focused on what was truly the most important thing, the most important person, Jesus Christ. Well, today's Feast of Christ the King was instituted in 1925 to make sure that all of us are focusing on the most important person in our lives, Christ, our King. When Pope Pius XI created this feast day in 1925, the church was in conflict with the government of Italy, headed by a man named Mussolini, who most of you have probably heard of. By declaring Christ as king, the church was saying to the world that Jesus, and not Mussolini or Hitler or any other dictator, was truly the king. Our faith is about the person of Jesus Christ, who reigns above all. The Feast of Christ the King should cause us to reflect on why we really go to church, to honor Christ our King, or because we're cultural Catholics like me and part of the institutional church, whether or not we put Christ at its center or not. Do we seek to know and have a relationship with Christ, or do we simply seek a checklist of things we should do to be in good standing, the things that will get us into heaven, whether or not Jesus Christ is at the center of our lives or not? Lately in my household, we have had numerous discussions with our 3 20-something daughters about how and why faith and church are important. As a father and a permanent deacon, I have struggled at times to explain why they should remain active and devoted to a church that they see as out of touch with their lives and their world. In fact, they see it as just another damaged and broken institution, like many other institutions today. But part of the answer I offer to my daughters to why faith in church is important is the point of today's feast. Yes, the church is broken, out of touch, and not perfect. But our faith is ultimately not about that broken institution. It is about Jesus Christ. My friend, Father Tom Nangle, FBI Chicago chaplain, who I mentioned just a moment ago, said to me many years ago, referring to both the FBI and the church and other institutions, that there is not an institution on earth that at some level is not an enemy of the human spirit. But I will also always remember the words of a visiting lecturer back in my college years, who during a dinner discussion about challenges facing the church at that particular moment, observed that as long as Christ is at the center of the church will survive. The good news today is that there is a person, a king, who is both God and human, and who we celebrate today, who, if he is the reason we go to Mass, and if we keep him at the center of our lives, will not disappoint us, will always be there for us, will always watch over us. He is the reason why the church exists, and why we gather together each Sunday on holy days, and why we should wake up each morning thanking him that we are alive, and offering our day to him, making him the center of our lives. As I mentioned at the beginning of my homily, today is the last Sunday of the church year, and Advent starts next Sunday. So I'd like to invite you to pause this week, to take time to reflect on the church year that is past and on the church year that is to come. And just like in the secular world, where we will make resolutions for the new year at the end of next month, this would be a good time to also make some church New Year's resolutions, to commit ourselves to truly putting Christ back at the center of our lives. Perhaps you could recommit yourself to a routine of daily prayer. Daily prayer helps us to establish and maintain a relationship with Christ at the center. It would be great to set aside 15 to 30 minutes a day, but if you have limited time, you could just add a simple prayer that you could say each morning when you wake up. As one of my spiritual directors used to say, before your feet even hit the floor. Acknowledging God, dedicating the day to him. And when my daughters were in grade school, one of them taught me this prayer, which her class would say each morning. Oh my God, I give you this day. I offer you now all the good that I will do, and I accept for love of you all the difficulty I will meet. Help me to conduct myself in a manner pleasing to you. I now say that prayer each morning when I open my eyes before my feet hit the floor. Finally, you could take some time to reflect on why church, why faith is important in your life. Is it because you were raised Catholic, because you are a cultural Catholic like me, because you're just looking for that checklist of things you need to do to go to heaven? Well, this week, rededicate yourself to Christ and truly make him the reason. Make Christ your King. Amen.